What's up, guys? Welcome to another video on our JavaScript course. In this video we're going to learn about the JavaScript console. Basically what the console is it's meant to help you check your code when you're writing web applications. That's like the practical use of it, and I'll show you what that means later on in this lesson. But if we just open up Google Chrome, and then we'll create our file first. So let's go into our JS course files, and I'm going to name this next file 3-js-console.html, and get my boilerplate code here. I'm going to name the page JS console and make some script tags here. Okay, and then I'm going to launch the page in my browser. There it is. Alright, so this is I'll show you the console here. So I'm going to right click on the web page and go to inspect. And then down here, this is a bunch of stuff for JavaScript. Okay, if you've ever done this, like a lot of people do, you might accidentally hit like F11 on Windows, and it brings this up. I think it's like F11. Like people bring this up all the time, like when they're at work, when you're typing fast, even before you know how to code, and like this pops up. And this is Chrome Developer Tools, and it has like all the information you need for CSS and HTML and JavaScript. And people, most people don't know what it is. They're just like, how do I get rid of this, right? Like, and then you finally click the X. They have no clue that this exists or what it is. But for developers, it's really helpful. So if I click on console here, now we're in the JavaScript console, okay? So what the console does is it allows you to log out information using JavaScript. So if we go to our script tags over here, we can actually log to the console, and the method for that is called console.log. So we go console.log parentheses, and then you can put pretty much whatever you want in here. You can put numbers, so we can say like 1, 2, 3 and save. And see, when we saved 1, 2, 3 went to the console because we said, hey, log this to the console, console.log 1, 2, 3. And then you can also log numbers, or not, sorry, we just did numbers. You can log text, which is also called strings in JavaScript. Text is called a string, and you have to put strings in quotation marks. We'll go over strings in a later lesson, but so you can you can just put whatever you want. So let's put practical web dev in here, save. Okay, so notice how numbers show up as purple and strings show up as like white. So it's different text. Typically in the console, different kind of data types is what they're called. This is a data type, a number, data type string. They'll show up differently so that you can tell them apart easy. You can also console log like variables. So again, we haven't gotten into variables yet, but we can create a variable. So let's just say var first name. First name equals, I'll put my name. My first name is Nick. Okay. So now what we can do here is we can come down, we can console.log that variable name, which is just first name. So you don't need any quotations or anything, just put the variable name and hit save. We misspelled console. There we go. Console.log first name, and our first name is equal to Nick. So in the console, it has Nick. Okay. So that's console.log, and that's how it works. You'll be using it a lot. It's really like a practical skill to know, because you're not going to be really using it to just like log stuff out for fun. I'm going to show you the practical way that you use the console now, and that's to actually check that you're selecting stuff that you mean to select in JavaScript. Like, this is a way to check your work while you're building more complicated code and functions and applications, so that you know that you're doing the right thing, because sometimes stuff isn't going to work and you're going to want to know why, and the console is going to tell you. For example, like when I misspelled console here and it said canole or whatever, see how on the console it threw the error. It said, hey, it's not working on line 16, which is actually the line of our text editor, okay? It actually tells you where your error is. Uncaught reference error. Canol is not defined. So as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, I spelled console wrong. But it'll tell you, like all kinds of different errors you have. So yeah, whenever if something on your page isn't working right, you can always go to the console and look. It'll probably give you an error for JavaScript. But then, like I said, we can also use it to check our work. So let me fix that, and the error goes away. So let me show you like a practical use case of how you would actually use the console, like when you're building something, just so you have that in your head. And I like to do this obviously because the channel is called Practical Web Dev. I don't like to just teach a bunch of theory and bull crap that people teach for like 3 hours before they get to the point, right? So some of this code you might not understand, but again, this is just a practical example so that your brain makes the connection on why this thing is important, because this silly stuff isn't going to really make much of an impression on you, trust me. So let's go back to our example. In the last lesson, we wanted to make a button that changed the background of the page. So we're gonna make another button. I don't think I'm gonna make it change the background, but I'll make a button and we'll just like make a message log out when we click it. How about that? That's normal. So let's go up and I'm gonna click out of the script tags up into my HTML. I'm gonna do a button tag. I'm just gonna say button. And then we'll give it an ID of BTN. And then I'm going to select it with a JavaScript variable so that we can click it, or we can mess with it with JavaScript. So I'm going to put it in a variable so we can do that. So I'll say var, and I'll call it the variable BTN, and we'll say that's equal to document dot get element by ID. So we're telling the browser to get this button, grab onto this button element with JavaScript. We're saying get it by its ID name, and that's going to be BTN. Again, don't worry if this is really confusing. You'll get it eventually, okay? We'll learn this in depth. This is just for an example. So, but follow along with me, guys, because this is actual JavaScript. So type this out with me, okay? Get that muscle memory going. So var btn equals document.get element by ID button, okay? And now what I can do here is I can console.log out the button, so I can check my work as I go, and the console will tell me if I'm actually selecting the button. So let's say console.log btn. Oh, we don't want it to be in a string. BTN. And look at the console now. It's showing me here, like, here, yeah, you do. You selected the button with the ID BTN. It's kind of showing it to you, okay? And then same thing in here. You can see BTN button. All right. So then it has all this information down here. It just says null. You don't got to worry about what all this means right now, but it is telling you that, like, hey, like, you're selecting the button, so that's good. It means we're on the right track. The button is selected. We didn't misspell anything or anything like that. Now see if I did this. What if I misspelled button? I just put BN. Now when we console.log button, it says null. Null is just it's a word that means like nothing's there. So JavaScript is telling us in the console nothing's there, dude. So right away, if that says null, I'm like, oh, I did something wrong, and I'll go look. It says on line 20, and sure enough, line 20 isn't picking up button because we didn't spell our ID correctly. Okay, so now our button is back. See? So this is how you check your work as you go. Again, this is going to be really valuable when you're actually building stuff. You're going to want to check your work as you go. Okay, it's kind of like when you did math in school and the teacher wanted you to show your work. All right, so we know we're on the button. So we want to click the button and have something happen. So I'm going to add an event listener. So I'll say btn.addEventListener. I'm going to put parentheses, and we want to listen for a click. Okay. And then I want to run a function, which is just like I said in the last lesson. It's just a block of code. That's all a function is. It's just a block of code that runs when you want it to, pretty much, when you call it. And within that function, I just want to console.log the button has been clicked, and save. So now when I click this button, we should get this message in the console that says the button has been clicked. It should come down here. Let's see. Yep, there it is. The button has been clicked, and watch, we can do it multiple times. And see how the counter, there's like a little counter going up here. Okay. And that's how you know you're getting the button. So a lot of times when you're building like a project to where, let's say when somebody clicks a button, it checks if they have the right email address, like in a form. You'll, on the click, before, like as you're building that function, you'll actually want to be using the console.log to make sure that the button is like being clicked correctly, because you don't want to write this code and then a bunch of other code to check like an input for an email address and then have a typo way back here. And then you have to like figure it out. Like you want to check your work. It's a really good practice to like just check your work as you go. And if you work for like other, like if you ever work for like a bigger company someday as a web developer, like they're going to have practices set in place where you're checking your work somehow. And it might be like, yo, use your console, like know what you're doing. So let's say that I did something wrong and like I had like something misspelled. Let's say I just put like BT here on accident. And it would tell me again, like uncaught reference error. So when I click it, nothing's going to happen because, again, we like misspelled something. So the console let us know, okay? So that's really all. That's like the practical use case of the console. And that's console.log, I should say. Because there's other console. There's console.log, and then I'll show you like there's other stuff that you can do with the console. There's console.error where you can like console log out errors. There's console.count. There's all this stuff that you can do, and not just console.log, console.table. You can like make a table in the console. But I'm not going to get like super into this stuff because I've never used it practically. Like I've never used it. Like a lot of the courses for JavaScript will have like an hour video on the console with all this crap in it, and like you don't ever use it, dude. So just know that there's other stuff you can do in the console. But you're going to be using console.log a lot. You're not really going to be using any of this other stuff unless you have some kind of project that requires it, but I don't even know what that would be. So like you can count with the console. That's kind of like a loop. You can clear the console. So if we did, if you wanted to clear your console down here, you could just say console. You can actually type JavaScript in the console. Say console.clear. Whoops. Console.clear. Enter. And now it's console. Now it's cleared. I guess that's the only time you'd really use that. But we don't want that. I want to show our stuff. So hopefully you've been coding along with me, because now I want to do like a little challenge for you where you can pause the video and then do it. So I'm going to write out some pseudocode from our last lesson with some instructions for you. So we'll do the first one. We'll say console. We'll say use console, or use the console to log your first name. So log your first name underneath that code. And then next one we'll say use the console to log your favorite color. And then lastly we'll say use the console to log your age. Okay, so in your text editor, do all this under here. Go ahead and pause the video. And when you come back, we'll do this together if it's kind of throwing you off, okay? Go ahead and get this done. All right, so hopefully that wasn't too hard. So let's do this together. Let's check your work, or maybe if you had trouble with it. So we're going to use the console to log our first name. So let's say console.log. And then, again, my first name is Nick. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this because I don't want to write console.log every time. And now I'm going to say console.log. Let's see, our favorite color. So favorite color is black. Okay, there it is shown in the console. So we got my first name, we got my favorite color, black. And then lastly, use the console to log your age. And I am 32. Cool. So it all showed up there. So hopefully you were able to do that and it wasn't too difficult. If it was, go back after this video and play around with the console yourself and log out numbers and whatever else you want to log out. And then when you're done with that, go ahead and come see me in the next lesson. We'll learn about some more JavaScript. All right. Thank you so much for watching the video.